Hey, what's up, guys? I just got back into town. I've had a lot of questions about who I think is going to win this fight. So I had to get a prediction video out before the fight for the main event of UFC 251 Fight Island on Yas Island in Abu Dhabi. Usman versus Masvidal, a fight I am crazy excited about. As far as replacement fights, this is the best ever. I think I think you couldn't have made this fight as a replacement fight any better than it is. I like Gilbert Burns, and you know it would have been an okay fight. I don't like the fact they were training partners. I'm never super excited to watch a fight when I know these guys train together. I mean, I know how close it is in the training room. I know how when I train with people, I know a lot of things about them they don't know I know, and vice versa, and also things they know that I know. And it's just it creates a dynamic that's just not interesting to me when I watch people fight. I want to see bad blood. I want to see violence, and God, Masvidal lives up to all of that. I want to see someone get in there and really fight, and this is what's really going to happen. Not that I'm nothing against Gilbert. Again, I don't think he would have went in there and not fought and tried to win and to be a champion, but I just think there were too many things they knew about each other that would have came into play, and it wouldn't have made for the fight that we're going to see now with Masvidal versus Usman. I want to say Usman is a very good fighter. You obviously saw the title of the video, so you probably know who I'm going to go with. It wasn't a trick title. I obviously am picking Masvidal, and I think I can add some insight here, some things that maybe can clarify why, with my experience and knowledge of watching Masvidal for 17 years fighting. I'm an OG in the sport as well, you know, and I was watching him fight in Bodog back in like 2006. I think he turned pro 2003 or something. 17 years ago. You know, so I mean, and he was fighting in the street before that. I mean, he was fighting bare knuckle against huge guys with like, I mean, he's a fighter to the core. You couldn't build a better fighter from the ground up is Masvidal. I mean, he really is a bad motherfucker. You know, that's why he's got the belt for it. You know, he proved it, and he proved it again, stepping into this fight on 6 days' notice, and going through all this COVID testing, flying to Abu Dhabi, doing all this media because he's getting all the media attention for this fight, and he's having to deal with that. Staying in good shape so that he can win this fight. I mean, he threw himself into a championship fight. I mean, it's not like he threw himself into just a normal fight. So that took a lot of guts. And another thing I want to mention about Masvidal is this is something he does. A lot of people don't realize this, but this is something Masvidal's done time and time again. He puts himself in really bad positions and does really bad things, and he gets away with it. You know, like he puts himself in fights against guys that are favorites multiple times. I can't even think of how it's been. So many times he's been the underdog, and a lot of those times he put himself in those fights and then he won, you know. So I think he's very comfortable being uncomfortable, and I think I've heard him say that verbatim, actually. I think he likes being in a position where he has to be motivated to fight and be motivated to go in there and use the mentality that's so savage that he has. And I think that mentality, which is what I think I'm going to bring out in this prediction, is what's going to be the key factor of why I'm picking Masvidal. He is a different breed of person. And when you look at anything where people, especially anything physical, a lot of sports, definitely when it comes to martial arts, mentality is so important. And I'll say on Usman's side, being a champion gives you a boost in mentality and confidence. We've seen many times. So this is a plus for Usman. Not only the fact he's a great fighter, he's big, he's strong, he's a good wrestler, he's got good clinching, he sets up great takedowns from his punches, which is, you know, he's unorthodox in that way. You know, he's good at grinding, unbelievable cardio, doesn't quit, keeps going. I mean, he's not going to get tired. So he has a lot of great points, don't get me wrong, and he is the betting favorite. I mean, Masvidal is a 3-1 underdog, so I'm going against everyone by saying Masvidal is going to win this fight. But being a champion is a very positive thing when you're a fighter. It elevates your game, and it doesn't make you technically a better fighter overnight, It doesn't make you a stronger fighter overnight. It doesn't make you anything physical overnight. But the mentality makes you a better fighter overnight. We've seen many people become champions and then fight completely different from that point on. We saw guys go on tears, like back in the day, your Vanderlei Silvas, Anderson Silvas, all your Silvas, they become champions, and then they're just it's not only the fact that they're good and they deserve to be a champion, but they just break people. Like I think when I was watching Vanderlei Silva back in Pride, I think people were broken before they ever walked out, and then they'd look across the ring and they'd see Vanderlei Silva, the champion, the guy who crushes people. And for 10 years, nobody could beat this man. And I think most of those people were beat before they ever even got in the octagon or the ring in that case, because, his legacy, he was on a pedestal and people put him there because he was a champion. And I think Usman, not only do people put you on a pedestal, but Usman has the confidence from being on that pedestal. And so I think that's going to go into his favor in most situations. I think in this situation, it's not going to do anything. I think he's fighting a guy who is one of the most diehard, savage guys in the sport as far as fighting goes. And I think that is going to be the difference between who wins this fight and who doesn't. I think obviously Usman has the cardio, the strength. Now, when I said about the clinch, he's a good clinch fighter. I think Masvidal is getting overlooked in that regard because Masvidal is a better clinch fighter than most people think. We saw him do really well against Nate Diaz, and Nate Diaz is a good clinch fighter as well. He did very good against Conor McGregor. We've seen Masvidal fight in the clinch with other guys too, very well. So I don't think he is going to be as easy in the clinch, if Usman can even beat him in the clinch, as Gilbert would have been. And I think that was something that probably Usman was preparing for, was to beat Gilbert in the clinch and then beat him on the feet. Obviously, I don't think it's a secret Usman was training for a striking fight. I think he wanted to strike with Gilbert, and I think that's going to be a big mistake now that they changed the opponents. And I do want to say that I gave credit to Masvidal for taking this fight on short notice. I want to give credit to Usman for taking this fight on short notice, even though he was preparing and even though he had a camp and he was getting ready, unfortunately for the wrong type of opponent. And that's why I give him credit, because he's fighting a completely different person right now. He's fighting a dog. He's fighting one of the toughest, most savage guys in the sport, who's on an absolute tear, who is the most confident he's ever been, who's just destroying people. And he's putting his belt on the line and at the same time on short notice, where he doesn't have time to go back and prepare for someone like Masvidal, which, to be honest, I think he would have a hard time preparing for anyway. Masvidal brings new things to the fight every time. He's the resurrection, the changing, the resurrection and this whole rebirth of Masvidal has came with a lot of surprises. And one of those surprises is he's bringing new moves, new strategies. I mean, the knee against Askren, I can't go into enough detail about how much more complex that was than it actually looked. A lot of people saw Askren come across, and then Masvidal met him in the middle, threw a flying knee, hoped it landed, and then threw a couple punches to finish it up. It was way more complex than that. You can break that down. That was very technical. He planned that to a T. I'm talking about the angle he ran, how he knew the way Ben Askren was going to shoot, how he was going to make Ben Askren shoot by rushing him. I mean, when you got a striker, street fighter, savage guy like Masvidal coming at you that fast, and you're a wrestler, I mean, your natural instinct is to shoot, and he knew that, and he counted on it, and then he prepared for exactly how he would probably shoot, and just everything worked out. Nate Diaz, he did a lot of different things with the Nate Diaz fight. The switch left hand against Till. He's bringing new stuff every fight, and he's strategizing, and he's really preparing uniquely for every opponent, and he's got the confidence now to try these moves and to do these things and not care, and not worry about the risk, because this confidence and this momentum that he has. And I think that's going to be very, very dangerous for someone like Usman. And we got to understand, too, it's a win-win for Masvidal. I mean, Masvidal's taking this fight on six days' notice. He's fighting the champion. I mean, if he loses, his stock doesn't go down at all. I mean, if he has, unless he just gets absolutely destroyed in this fight, he's still going to be bigger than he was before this fight, and his legend's going to grow. So that's dangerous, when you consider the fact that he's coming in kind of with a win-win mentality. And like I said before, he's been fighting for so long. It's one of those things where, okay, so he's had 48 fights. He's had 16 knockouts, and he's had 13 losses. So a lot of people, I think 13 losses, a lot of people were looking at that like, okay, so he's lost a lot. That's going in the bad direction for him in this fight, considering Usman hasn't had but one loss. Well, let's consider the fact that he just destroyed Ben Askren, who was undefeated. And let's also look at the fact that's 13 lessons. You can look at it as a loss. You can look at it as a lesson. One of my recent podcast guests, Hollywood Hino, mentioned he never loses. He takes lessons. So he learns from those mistakes. So I think that's the same case with Masvidal. He's learned. He's been able to learn a lot more because he's taken those losses. So he's learned what not to do. And that's how you get better. You fail at something, and then you learn how to achieve it. You learn how to get past it. Usman doesn't have that experience yet. So I think that's going to play against him as well. And I don't know. There's so many other things that I don't want to drag this video on and make it crazy long, but I just feel like the mentality he has coming into this fight, that kill mentality, even the way like you saw when he landed the knee against Askren, he followed up with punches like so fast, so accurately, like he was going out there to kill him. And another good point about that is, we've seen Masvidal in the past talk about, have an exchange of words with opponents, but he always gave him credit. The guy's a dog, the guy's a great fighter, but blah, blah, blah. But I'm going to kill him. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. He gave zero credit to Ben Askren. He gave zero credit to Usman. He hasn't said a single good thing about this man. I think that stems from confidence, because when you don't give credit to your opponents and you lose to them, you look really bad. So you don't want to set yourself up for that. So when you're out there so confidently, not giving any credit whatsoever, you're very confident. And that goes into everything else I said about his confidence taking control. I think he's a dynamic striker. I think Usman doesn't like getting hit. We saw the fight with Meek. He got bombarded by Meek, and he backed up and kind of panicked a little bit. And he doesn't like getting hit more than once, getting strikes thrown at him more than once. He's very good at evading one strike, but when it comes to 2, 3, 4, 5, and he starts getting bombarded, he turns away, he panics. And then the Colby fight, like I said, he opened up some holes to everybody, I think, in that regard there. Colby landing strikes. Colby's a wrestler, landing big strikes, hurting Usman. And Masvidal is a way better striker than Colby is, and he's going to follow up. Colby didn't follow up so well. He landed big strikes, but then he waited. Masvidal is going to follow up, and he's going to follow up in a very violent, vicious way. And for those reasons, for all the reasons that I just said, I think it's going to be a Masvidal fight, and I think that he's going to be able to break through that pressure, defend the clinch, defend the takedowns, which he did very well against many other fighters in the past, and even on the ground. I think his ground game's underrated as well. Damian Maia said he's one of the best ground guys he's ever fought in the UFC. I mean, there's just a lot of things I think people are overlooking with Masvidal, and so I wanted to make this video and just put myself out there saying I think Masvidal's going to win and why, so that when he does it, I could be like, yo, I told you guys. And if he doesn't, you guys are going to come back and you're going to just call me a bunch of names and say I'm an idiot. But I don't know. I'm just real big on the fighter mentality. I'm real big on true fighters that fight from the heart and because of the fight, not because of any other reason. And I think Usman's in for a rough fight against a savage, mean, angry guy, and I think it's going to be a different dynamic. I don't think he's ready for that dynamic. I don't think it's a dynamic that he's seen before if he starts getting hit. And I think that's what's going to happen in rounds 1 and 2. If it goes into later rounds, obviously it's going to favor Usman. Another thing I'm going to get into real fast, sorry I'm rambling, but Masvidal's been training. We saw Poirier say that he trained his entire camp and was Poirier's main training partner. So he has been training. It's not like he hasn't been training. And Poirier also said that after his camp, Masvidal stayed in the gym and kept training as if he was fighting, and actually even said maybe he knew something that everyone else didn't because he was training like he was fighting, like he had a fight. And obviously he didn't technically have a fight at that time. And he brought in wrestlers. He brought in very tough guys to work with. So it's not like he's taking this fight on 6 days notice and he hasn't been training, you know. Okay, so for those reasons, guys, as you already know, I'm going for Masvidal. I'm going to say KO or TKO. That's just how I see it. It's just my opinion. You know, like I said, obviously he's a 3-1 underdog. Experts say Usman, but I see the fight going the other way. And we'll see if I'm correct. And I'm sure you guys are going to let me know if I'm not. But let me know what you think in the comments below if you're watching on YouTube. And let's discuss it.
Swick, real quick with Mike Swick podcast.